Director Comey, you announced this morning that there'll be an investigation into Trump associates, possible and President Trump and anyone around the campaign and any association with the Russian government. If this committee or anyone else for that matter, someone from the public, comes with information to you about the Hillary Clinton campaign or their associates or someone from the Clinton Foundation, will you add that to your investigation? They have ties to Russian intelligence services, Russian agents. Would that be something of interest to you?
People bring us information about what they think is improper and lawful activity of any kind, we will evaluate it. Not just in this context. Folks send us stuff all the time. They should keep doing that.
Do you think it's possible that the Russians would not be trying to infiltrate Hillary Clinton's campaign, get information on Hillary Clinton, and try to get to people that are around that campaign or the Clinton Foundation?
I'm not prepared to comment about the particular campaigns, but the Russians in general are always trying to understand who the future leaders might be and what levers of influence there might be on them.
I just hope that if information does surface about the other campaigns, not even just Hillary Clinton's, but any other campaigns, that you would take that serious also if the Russians were trying to infiltrate those campaigns around them.
Of course.
Thanks for being here. Admiral Rogers, you mentioned analytic standards earlier in the conversation. Are those standards the same for all intelligence analysts across the various agencies?
There's a broad set of intelligence community promulgated standards for all of us, and then there are specific issues associated, for example, with a particular authority that you're using to collect the information in the first place.
So, Jim, the same thing with your agency, your analysts would have similar type standards?
Correct. That's one of the really good things that's happened since 9/11, especially since 2004, is the adoption of a common set of tradecraft provisions.
So I'm a CPA, and we have generally accepted accounting standards, which are promulgated across a variety of things. Are those same standards publicly promulgated, or but generally assimilated through all of your analysts? I would assume would have some sort of a test that they know those standards.
I think the specifics of the IC promulgated standards are classified, but I could take that one for the record, sir.
When the IC attributes a hacking to a particular actor, you do that through generally forensic evidence. But when it comes to trying to determine intent of foreign leaders, can you walk us through how the NSA does that or the FBI does that?
We assess the range of information that we've collected in an attempt to generate understanding as to not only what has occurred, but part of the intelligence profession is also trying to understand why, what was the intent. We'll use the range of information we have available to us while we're primarily a single source organization. It's one reason why organizations like CIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, which take multiple sources to try to put together a complete picture. So we're just one component of a broader effort.
Comey, anything different than that?
No, it's about putting together a puzzle. Sometimes from forensics alone, you can get a pretty good indication as to what they must be intending to accomplish. Other times it requires human sources and additional signals intelligence to give you that sense.
So both of you agree, though, it's rarely a precise art or a precise science of determining intent of any foreign leader.
That's correct. All of intelligence work requires judgment. That's at the center of it.
But I will say in some cases, it's a much clearer case than in others. There are some places
that depends, I guess, on the sources you have inside a particular foreign leader's shop.
I'm not going to get into the specifics.
Well, it's just in general. If you had somebody who's next door neighbor, never mind. Pivoting to the January 6th intelligence community assessment, both your agencies agree with the assessment that the Russians' goal was to undermine the public faith in the U.S. democratic process. Is that still your assessment?
Yes.
Yes.
Same assessment said that the Russians' goal was wanted to denigrate Secretary Clinton and harm her electability and potential presidency, and that Putin wanted to discredit Secretary Clinton because he publicly blamed her since 2011 for inciting mass protests against his regime in late 2011 and early 2012. You both still agree with that assessment?
Yes.
Yes.
And then finally, Admiral Rogers, that assessment went on to say that President Putin and the Russian government aspire to help President, I guess it had been candidate Trump at the time, but President-elect Trump's election chances when possible by discrediting Secretary Clinton. you had a lower
Confidence level.
Is that still the case?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell the group why you were?
I'm not going to get into the specifics in an unclassified form, but for me, it boiled down to the level and nature of the sourcing on that one particular judgment was slightly different to me than the others.
All right.
To be clear, Mr. Conaway, we all agreed with that judgment.
We all agreed
Right.
with
Yeah,
the judgment.
but you really agreed, and he almost really agreed.
Not terms our folks use, but I get
Not
it.
a term of art. I got you. Director Comey, in terms of laying out those three assessments, and whether or not the IC was consistent in its view of those three assessments across the entire campaign, can we walk through kind of the FBI's walk down that path? As of early December of 16, did the FBI assess that the active measures were to undermine, by the Russians were to undermine the faith in the U.S. democratic process? Did you come to that conclusion by early December?
I think that's right, December of last year.
16, yes, sir.
I think we were at that point, yes.
And then active measures conducted against Secretary Clinton to denigrate her, hurt her campaign, and also undermine her presidency.
Correct.
All right. And then the conclusion that active measures were taken specifically to help President Trump's campaign. You had that by early December. You already had that conclusion?
Correct. That they wanted to hurt our democracy, hurt her, help him. I think all three we were confident in at least as early as December.
Okay. The paragraph that's given me a little concern there in terms of just the timing of when all of that occurred, because I'm not sure if we went back and got that exact same January assessment 6 months earlier, it would have looked as developed a clear preference for President-elect Trump. Any idea when that clear preference in the analysis, when did that get into the lexicon of when you talking back and forth among yourselves on a classified basis?
I don't know for sure, but I think that was a fairly easy judgment for the community. Putin hated Secretary Clinton so much that the flip side of that coin was he had a clear preference for the person running against the person he hated so much.
Yeah, and that might work on Saturday afternoon when my wife's Red Raiders are playing the Texas Longhorns. She really likes the Red Raiders. But all the rest of the time, I mean, the logic is that because he really didn't like the candidate Clinton, that he automatically liked Trump. That assessment's based on what?
Well, it's based on more than that, but part of it is, and we're not getting into the details of it here, but part of it is the logic. Whoever the Red Raiders are playing, you want the Red Raiders to win. By definition, you want their opponent to lose.
I know, but this says that you wanted both of them, you wanted her to lose, wanted him to win. Is that
right? They're inseparable. Right? It's a two-person
right
event.
I got you. So I'm just wondering when you decided you wanted him to win.
Well, logically, when he wanted her to lose, he wanted her.
No, I'm not talking about him. I got that. But the question is, when in this clear, well, then let me finish up then. So we go through that sentence about the clear preference for Donald Trump, and we don't know exactly when you guys decided that was the case. Then it says, when it appeared to Moscow that Secretary Clinton was likely to win the election, the Russian influence campaign then focused on undermining her expected presidency. So, and then the next sentence says, the Russian government aspired to help President-elect Trump election chances. So when did they not think she was going to win?
Well, the assessment of the intelligence community was as the summer went on and the polls appeared to show that Secretary Clinton was going to win, the Russians sort of gave up and simply focused on trying to undermine her. It's your Red Raiders. You know they're not going to win, so you kind of hope key people on the other team get hurt so they're not such a tough opponent down the road. And so there was at some point...
So you believe that the FBI was consistent through early December and on, that was the case, that they assessed that they really wanted Trump to win it and were working to have him win and her lose.
Yes, our analysts had a view that I don't believe changed from late fall through to the report on January 6th that it had those three elements.
All right. So then on December the 9th, Well in advance of the January 6th deal, the Washington Post put out an article. Their lead sentence was that this, and again, CIA, they're not here today, but in the 2016 election to help Donald Trump win the presidency rather than to undermine the confidence in the electoral system. Rather than just undermine it. They don't mention Ms. Clinton at all. And then it says to help Trump get elected, the U.S. senior briefed on the intelligence position, the U.S. official briefed on the intelligence presentation to U.S. senators said that's the consensus view. How much did this is written by a guy named Adam Entos, Elaine something, and Greg Miller. Did they help draft the January 6th document for the Intel Committee?
I'm sorry?
Did those writers from the Washington Post help you write the January 6th assessment?
No, they did not.
I wonder how they got almost the exact language on December the 9th.
It hadn't been written yet. I don't know. This is the peril of trying to comment on newspaper articles that purport to report classified information. I can't say much about them. They're often wrong.
Yep. You mentioned earlier in one of our hearings that when anybody uses I can't talk because I'm bound by position of anonymity or whatever, that really is code for breaking the law, generally, right? When somebody says, I'm talking to a reporter, I'm just classifying secret information, you can't tell, the reporter can't tell who it is because, as Mr. Gowdy was saying earlier, speaking on a condition of anonymity, that really should be interpreted because I'm breaking the law and I don't want to be outed. Is that a fair statement?
Sometimes. I think there are other motives behind people requesting anonymity, but that can be one of them.
So it's your statement to us that the FBI was consistent in its assessment that they denigrate the U.S. electoral process, hurt Hillary and her potential candidacy, and concurrent across all of that, that they intended to help Trump. That's your testimony this morning?
Correct.
Thank you. Yield back.